the next best time is now. And the most important thing with parenting is constancy and consistency. Now, to help us with this topic, I'm going to start with a foundation. Human beings, our upbringing, our development can very easily be described in two ways. Our nature, which is who we are, keeping in mind that there's a version of ourselves that we see and a version of ourselves that other people see. And that is usually a blind spot for some of us. And then nurture, the influences that shape who we are, where you've gone to school, where you've grown up, the relationships that you've had and you continue to have as you grow. Now, when we talk about nature, you hear things like people's temperament. I mean, there are four dominant temperaments that people have. We have people that are melancholic, phlegmatic, we have the sanguines, and we have the cholerics. You talk about love languages, physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation. I could go on with all these things, but you have children that are strong-willed. Some are a bit laid back. You have people that, as some people say, have type A personalities. Whatever the label, whatever the box that you would fit in your child into, what is important is to identify some of the character traits that these different groupings have so that you are able to guide them, mold and shape them. As you can imagine, the way that you would speak to a strong-willed child is not the same way that you might speak to a child who is a bit more laid back, needs more nudging, needs more empathy to get things done. So understanding these characteristics that your children have by default gives you the foundation to start to nurture those characteristics so that you can have well-rounded children. So it's important to understand whether your child is someone who just likes to do things themselves. And even when you offer guidance, they might feel a little offended, like, you don't have to tell me, I knew what to do. And of course, as parents, we always think, well, it's my responsibility to teach. It's my responsibility to offer guidance. It's my responsibility to direct. And while that will be true, we have to make sure that that's all we're doing, offering guidance, offering directions, and not giving commands. Now, when we talk to nurture, we begin to see more manifestations of the parent. It's very easy to meet a child and think, oh, this might be so and so's child. This might be Mrs. Salami's child, or this might be Mrs. Simbi's daughter, or Mr. Salami's son, because they're just similarities. People tend to unintentionally replace things that they would do differently in their lives, in their children. You would have preferred to study a medical science, so you think that's the best way to go. I should encourage my kids to go to the science classes. All of the other things are skills that they can learn on the side. So nurture is very much about influences, the schools that you go to, the city that you've grown up in, the kinds of friends that you have. All these things shape our nurture, how we view things, how we respond to things as we grow. But what is key to take away from this slide, I will say, is whether it's their nature or their nurture, the idea is to understand so that we can offer guidance that can shape and give a sense of direction. So when you are raising children at the different stages of their formation, we want to have this at the back of their mind. How do I consider the realities I know with my child's personality and the environment that they're in so that they can be the best version of themselves? The way that you would speak to a strong-willed child in Nigeria might be different from the way you would speak to a strong-willed child outside of Nigeria, because it might have a different impact based on the environment that they're in. But remember, we don't want to raise children who only fit into one geopolitical space. We want our children to go to different parts of the world and still be able to fit in. Now, if I was to group parenting into three core ideas to transmit, I will start with autonomy. Human beings, even children, want to be free. They want to express their freedom. They don't want to feel like someone else controls what they do. Quite frankly, no human person wants to feel like they do not have a say in their own lives. And children are not an exception to this rule. So instead of giving directions which can be interpreted by children, especially in 2026. I would say most people on this call, maybe not the majority, not everyone, but the majority probably still have children that are dependent, so less than 18, still at home with them. And I'm sure there are Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, you already see that they are not as likely to take to commands as they are to suggestions. This is because there's a lot more awareness with the freedom that they have. Things have changed a lot with most parents were growing up, there were what we call traditional careers. But I'm sure that everyone on this call has seen that now traditional careers have shifted. Being a content creator is a very real and valid career a child can have, as opposed to when you were growing up, when it was medicine, law, engineering, even teaching was more traditional than it is right now. So children want to feel like they decide. How do you get this done? How do you teach them to be free with responsibilities? Give suggestions. Ask them very politely, but also give options. Remember, they are your dependents for a reason. They come to you for guidance. They come to you for direction. They come to you when they need things. So keep that in mind for the other things. When you want them to do things as well, ask them kindly, ask them with respect, model the behavior that you want them to see or you want to see in them, and then give alternatives, give options. Let them be the ones picking and deciding what they want to do. If a child wants to eat something different from the menu for dinner, you can say things like, well, we do have a timetable and this is what is on the menu, but I'm happy to give you this other thing because it's a leftover from yesterday, or you can have this other thing because it's not going to cost anything and you can make it yourself. But outside of these two options, there's really nothing else you can do. And then they feel a sense of, well, I got listened to. Well, you've considered my request. And then, well, since I don't want this, I can go with that. And it becomes easier to have a dialogue with them. They're less willing to be resistant and push back when you ask them to do things that they might not feel like doing at the time. Now, the second would be values. Every family should have their own values, and you need to be very clear. Having generic ideas of, in our family we are respectful people, or in our family we love celebrations, that's very generic. Be more specific and say that as a respectful family we always use our magic words when we speak. That is very detailed, that is very specific, that is going down to the nitty-gritty of saying, you have to be saying please, excuse me, thank you. Talk politely to your siblings, talk politely to your parents, and speak politely to other people. You have to decide as a family, what are your values? What are the things you stand for? Say them by name and then go ahead to practice them. Let the children see and understand and be clear. These are the values that my children stand for. Very helpful ones are kindness. It used to be a very popular saying to say people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. I would add to that to say treating people with kindness is a universal language. I might not understand the language that you speak. I might not understand your culture. But if I'm crying and you hand me something to dab my face and my tears, I see that as kindness. I see that as concern. I'm able to tell that you are trying to extend the hand of, I might not say friendship, but you definitely care enough to see if there's anything you can do about it. So it's important. These are some of the virtues that are very important to teach. Honesty. People's interpretations of things might be very different. So honesty for one person might be different, but you can sense a genuineness. If someone gives you a gift and you think that that gift is to influence a decision you are going to make, and for that person in their culture, it shows respect, even though both of you have different views of the same action, the gesture that supports it will suggest the genuineness. If I'm giving you a gift to show respect, my gesticulations, my choice of words, the look on my face might show I'm happy and I want to do this for you, as opposed to, well, you have control over me and you can influence my state. That's why I'm doing this. So honesty is something that can be interpreted by non-verbal cues. So it's good to teach our children that. Another very helpful virtue to teach is courage, the virtue to try, the virtue to dare. the value that says, even if the world doesn't applaud you, you have to be so convicted in your own values that you keep going. Because again, the world is very global now, and your children will definitely come across values that are different from what you've shared, values that are different from what you believe in. But if they're able to treat people kindly, be courageous in their own convictions, they'll probably do very well. So make it very practical in your home. Like I said, name it. They need to know kindness is a very important value in my home. And then you need to try to model that behavior. The last pillar I would mention is connection. There should never be any doubt in your children's minds that you love them. And I know that sounds difficult to some parents, especially as your kids get older. When they're really small and cute and you can still lift them up and they just, their world revolves around you. Their love language is what will make mom and dad happy, what will make them smile. That's what I want to do. They want to sit around you. They want hugs from you. They want to just be around you and do things that you like. It's easier for you to feel their love and for them to feel your love. But you have to know that as they get older, the manifestations are going to be different, but they have to be sure that you love them. You might scold your children, but they have to know enough to know that it's because she cares. Every time she's worried about me doing something wrong, she gets like this or he gets like this. Daddy would only, sit me down and tell you I'm not happy with you if he knows that I've done something that would impact me negatively. And you have to start from day one. In 2026, I would say that if there are children who do not hear their parents say, I love you, they're at a risk of seeking that validation in the wrong places. If they are not parents around, hopefully they are good support systems where they are able to get that from. And maybe they don't get told I love you directly, but they can definitely feel the love. It is important to connect with them because wherever they find themselves, you want them be able to come back to you to seek clarity, to seek validation, and more importantly, to confirm and affirm that the values that you've taught them, they are still living them as best as they can. So let's remember that it's very important as early as we can manage that we connect with our children. They need to feel your love. They can't be unsure if you really care about them, if you really love them, if all the corrections that you give are coming from a place of love or coming from a place of your need for them to just do what you want. A very practical way I'll say it's very, action points, you know, practical, concrete ways that you can practice these things, these pillars that we just shared is I do, you watch, model the behavior, be the person who is embodying that behavior. My teenager is very disrespectful. Honestly, right now, it's impossible to get him to do anything. She's always on her phone. She's checking this out. That's all well and good. But I'm going to challenge you as a parent. Try yourself to put away your phone for 30 minutes uninterrupted. You tell me, oh, well, I use my phone for my work. Oh, I use all my books on my phone. No, go into a library, print out a book if you can, get a hard copy version of that book for a change. And when the children are studying at the end of their school day, sit on the table, even if it's once a week with them for 30 minutes and read your book as well. Maybe, just maybe, you'll see how difficult it might be to not have it on your phone, even though you acknowledge that your phone does interrupt you sometimes and you quickly respond to that work message or you quickly check out something on social media because you got a notification. You try to model it. You might see how difficult it is. And if you, with all the experience that you have, all the wealth of knowledge that you have, struggle with that, just maybe you might be able to transmit those values to them with a bit more kindness, with a bit more understanding. With, I tried to keep down my phone. I honestly spent 2 hours I didn't plan to spend on my phone. So I know how you feel, but let's put our devices away for 1 second. And they see their parents be the first to submit their devices at the end of the day. Not the children have to submit their devices at the end of the day, but the parents get to take it to their bedrooms. So maybe you should try modeling the behavior so that even if they don't like what you say, it becomes difficult to push back. Well, she also puts away her device. She also reads a book. So it's easier for them to see and want to emulate the behavior. Doing it together, I've already given instances. Don't read your book in your room for a change. Read it at the table where everyone sits to study. It's easy to say, oh, that's a study table. They should be on the table. You sit at the study table as well for a change so that they can see that you do some studying yourself. They need to see you model the behavior. Hopefully, your children look up to you. Hopefully, they feel like I want to be a fantastic professional when I grow up as well. And when they see you do these things, it becomes easier to say, well, I would see her sit on the table to study even when I was studying. I would see her put away her devices, or I would see daddy come home and put away his briefcase in the right place, but still come to the table to have some conversations and read a book. Maybe they need to see that. So, not just when they're with you, but when they're not with you anymore, that's the example that they remember. Their minds say, there's time for everything, and this is what I should be doing, and this is how I should be doing it. Do those things with them so that they see it done. And then, of course, take a back seat. You need to let them make their own mistakes. It doesn't matter how much instructions that you give. You might probably find them interpret it in a different way. That's okay. They might try their method and maybe they didn't quite study for 5 hours every day. They did 3 hours and they got by. And maybe they just managed to listen better in class and they're able to take notes and that works for them. Well, the most important thing in that instance is that they understand they need to be studying. Don't insist on a method that works for you and say, I have never seen anyone study without taking notes and pass an exam. Maybe you haven't. Maybe they're able to take notes while they're listening and then just read up on it when they're studying. Let them lead, let them make mistakes, and then you can offer guidance and say, well, I'm sorry that this method didn't work out. Do you want to try what I've said? I've seen it work out. Or what else haven't we tried? Offer support. Don't insist on your way and take over. Let them try, let them make their mistakes. Just please be there to offer guidance every step of the way. And then, of course, they need to be able to do these things independently. I think the hope of every parent is that eventually their kids grow out of the house and are able to survive and thrive on their own. If it's their intentions to have families of their own and be able to replicate and share this information with their own families and people around them. So let them try. They have to get to the point where they are autonomous. They are free from your step-by-step guidance, and then they come to you as required. Don't feel bad that your child gets to a point where they don't need to ask you everything. That's a sign of growth. That's a sign of autonomy. That's a sign that you've done something well. But remember that it's also good that they always know that if they really need you at any time, you're there for them. Um, The next thing I'll share is how do we live some of these values? I've talked about having them in the first place. I've gone on to share practical ways that we can live out those things in the sequence of modeling the behavior, getting them to do it, taking a step back so they practice. Now, how else can we make sure that these values that we've identified in our families are woven into everyday life? A value board. That's what I've called it. Please choose your name. It might be a magnetic clip on your fridge. It might be somebody in the house, but let it be visible. Remember how I said name the things so that it becomes part of the family. In the same way, people need to see things. As they say, out of sight can be out of mind. The more they see this value, they wake up every day before they walk out the door, they see that in this family, kindness is important to us just before they walk out. Or as they arrive in the house, you see something that says, know that you are loved, you will never be alone, and things like that. These are things that might seem it's just there. But when it matters, when their mind says, I'm feeling alone, they're going to remember that, but at home, every day I walked in and the first thing that greeted me was that I was loved and that I was important. These are things that can feel insignificant, but they are very important. Same as you have a family picture. Maybe you have a picture of your family on your work table, or you have it as a screensaver on your phone, or something like that. All these things that are things that remind us what is important to us. Let our values have that kind of presence so that we are just able and aware of their importance as we go through our day. The second thing I would mention is conversations with your kids. Please have time for as many kids as you have. If you have 5 kids, maybe they have one day a week. You have 10, you have 2 a day, something, whatever it is. They should always know you are there for them. But every conversation, every teaching moment can be result of an action. You just went out, your child didn't behave so well, they get a lecture. Why they're not supposed to behave a certain way and how disappointed and embarrassed that you are. No. Be proactive. Have moments in your day, in your month, in the family where every child knows how important that they are. Everyone on this call works. You have a job, you run a business, whatever it is. Even to become that professional, you learned these things. You were taught that you had to have meetings at work. You still have meetings, you still have opportunities where you plan. Your children are that important. Parenting is that important. You have to have a conversation with your child about things that are specific. We talked of family moments. Maybe you are able to have family dinners. Maybe you don't have family dinners in your home. Maybe you are just not able to manage all of that. Maybe you don't have study time. If you don't manage all these other things, please manage personal conversations with each of your children. End those conversations saying, I know if you ever need me, I'm there. But let there be time. You leave everything and give to each of your children and say, this is me and you time. When they're younger, they'll look forward to it. It will be fun and games. Maybe that day is just them sitting on your lap and you're asking them how their day went and they're excited about it. As they get older, please remember what we said, model the behavior, dress up for it. You're a dad, it's time with your daughter, make it count, take her on a date, make it difficult for the young men coming after you to, not keep up. You're a mom, treat your son with the respect that you would treat his dad. Model the behavior of what it means to have someone who is a supportive person in his life. You're the first examples of these things that they see. And they start from the little things of you. It doesn't have to be fancy. You might not go to a restaurant, you might not do this, you might sit at home, but both of you sit in a corner and it's just both of you talking. You might decide to take a walk down your street. It's just both of you having a conversation, but it needs to happen. Remember that for them as kids, that's how they make friends. They go to school, and when it's time for their lunch break or recess, they would take a walk with their own friends. They would have their own corner of the field. They would have, their own portion where they do their own thing. So you need to model that. You need to be that person that they come to and they spend all of that good time with. And let them look forward to it. Oh, I need to tell mom something. I need to tell dad something. And, I can't wait till Monday so that I can have time. I know you're busy, but please, 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 you can't outsource this. Now, the next thing I've mentioned here is the why conversation. Before you go to the rules, before you say it's either you have this or that for dinner, please start with the reasons. And these things can come up in these moments of debrief. Things are difficult economically now. I'm sure you've heard this. Well, maybe you haven't heard. There are a lot of people struggling. I need us to be very prudent in the way that we use things. I need you to finish up your food. And if you don't, I need you to put it away as soon as you get back so that you're able to, eat it at a later time. I don't want us wasting food because it just means we'll spend more money on food that we could use for something else. Let them understand consequences. Let them understand why. Entitled adults don't just turn up entitled. It's a result of parenting that has gone undone the right way for a certain while. A child that understands that I am not going to go out with this car today because it's just me. This other car is more fuel efficient. Yes, it's like, oh, wow, it's luxury. There are two cars. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm going to walk down to get my head on today because I just want to save a bit on gas. And I'm going to be taking, the weather is good today, so that's fine. Whatever it is, share with them. Let them see that you make sacrifices. Your children come to you and they say that they want something that was not on the list. Say, okay, that sounds like a good idea that you want to get a present for your friend. Give me a day or two. I'm going to look over and see what I can let go of so that I can support you with that. Let them be shocked that why do you need to do that? Well, yes, I do make money, but now you've told me something that was not on the list. So I'm going to see how I can get that done. But I agree with you that it's very good to get a present for your friend. You are raising children who understand that things don't just happen. Mom and dad work, that's an endless flow of cash. Anything I want, they give me. No, most of your children get not just what they need, but all that they want, even when it's difficult for you, because as a parent, you feel that's my responsibility, and that's fantastic. But even better is the fact that the children understand that there's work that goes into that. There's work that goes into you. You don't just leave in the morning and show up back in the evening, and then there's just, cash to get things done or money somewhere to get things done. Let them understand that all of that work, I've had my kids ask questions like, so how much do you make an hour? And I love that one day I heard them having a conversation about jobs. And, someone decided that instead of doing set designs, I could study architecture because I'll make more money. And then, when they've taken all the taxes and taken all the things that they have to take from me, I'll still have some left. And hey, I can do set designs on the weekends. And then I get asked, do you pay taxes? And I'm like, of course. They're like, what? And anyway, it's a funny conversation, but you need your children to understand these things. It means that the next time they come to you, I like that they check receipts and they check how much was taken in taxes for the things that they asked for. And they want to know, should I drop this off? Would it change the taxes? Get your children, and of course, even in Nigeria, you have to pay your taxes, on the different things. Because you might not see the breakdown doesn't mean it's not a hidden cost. So remember that, have these conversations with them. When an uncle gives them 1,000 naira for something, go with them to the store while they are picking out their sweets and the candy that they want. Show them what 1,000 naira would buy in foodstuff for the house. Show them that that cereal that they like actually costs 2,000 naira. So all of that money that they've used to buy their candy, you would have to double it to be able to buy the things that they do like. And then lastly, I would say mistakes are a learning opportunity. Honestly, that's the best thing to do with mistakes. Yelling at a child who has just failed an exam is just not the best use of that disappointing situation. Better than that is affirming that this is not the best result that they can get. You're sure, you're sure that they do as well. But what are we going to do differently? Please turn that moment around to teach. Nothing will come out of a condemnation. Remember, you're the adult. If you are not able to rein in your own feelings and stop yourself from yelling and saying how disappointed you are, then isn't it difficult for the children to be the one to say, well, I'm upset, I feel I want this now, I need this now, mom and dad aren't listening, they don't understand what I want. So remember, mistakes are a learning opportunity. That's the best thing to get out of a mistake that has already happened. And you never want to push your children to the point where they think that making a mistake is a deal breaker for you. I'm not your child anymore if I make a certain kind of mistake. They need to know that there are certain things you really shouldn't do, but whatever happens, know that I'll be there for you and we'll have to walk through this and get past it together. And in a nutshell, some of the traps that we can fall into in parenting can be jumping in as soon as there's a problem. And of course, you see the problems. Your child is going too fast on something. You want to step in and stop them because they'll fall. Sometimes, honestly, falling is the only way they learn that you can't run down a hill, or running up a hill will drain you faster. Deciding for them, they need to take ownership of their decisions. Start early. It's in the little things. What will you have for breakfast? These are the options. What are you taking for lunch? These are the options. Where are you going to go on the weekend? These are the options. Let them be part of the decision making so that it's clear that they were part of it and they have to be responsible for the consequences that come out of those decisions. And be practical with choices. Celebrate the effort as well. The result is usually a show of how well you've done. But a child who gets all A's consistently might feel like they've failed if they get a B on some subject. Instead of, affirming that, well, it's true, you did badly here, walk through the steps and say, well, you did turn in your assignments at the right time. You did well in this other subject, but I see that it was during your examinations you didn't do so well. Maybe truly they weren't feeling their best and there's nothing you could have done about that. Maybe they really didn't study as hard as they should because they were comfortable that, they knew what to do. Whatever it is, be sure that they know every step of the way I should be giving my best, because it also counts towards the bigger picture. If they think it's just the big picture, they'll burn out. before they get to that final line, they're already unsure of how well they're doing. And of course, that's not a good motivation to keep going and getting better at what we do. We've talked about this a lot, but I'm throwing it in here as well. Model the example you want to see. You have a difficult child, it does not excuse you yelling back. Your child is yelling, you're yelling, two people are yelling. You need to be the one that takes charge, be the big person, be the parent, the example. Remember, they are the dependent, and model the example, and you be consistent. Your child's yelling or shouting or bad, inappropriate behavior in that moment should not determine how you react. You have to stay consistent so that they understand what consistency looks like. So, or some possible next steps, remember to identify your family values, talk about them anytime that works for your family. Identify something that you can already work on based on what you've heard. What do you think you can let your child start to do more themselves, to grow their autonomy, to grow their independence? Is there something that was difficult here? And what did you learn about that? Have you discovered a better way to navigate that situation? And most importantly, stop yourself from jumping in every step of the way. That's not autonomy. That's not teaching your children freedom that comes with responsibility. And I'll end with this quote. The goal of parenting is to raise children who can truly live freedom with responsibility. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'll hand over to Ms. Melvina and take any questions that you might have. Thank you all for listening.
Wow, thank you so much. This was quite a time, apt, and very engaging. Thank you very much, Mrs. Ezekobe, for such a thoughtful, practical, and inspiring presentation. I'm sure many of us have been challenged tonight. We have also been encouraged and equipped with valuable insights that we can begin applying immediately. This is really hands-on. We'll now move to the question and answer segment. I'm sure that we have a lot of questions. We also know that some of the most powerful learning moments come from the questions we ask and the experiences we share. So we'd like you to type in your questions on the chat box. I'll read them and our facilitator would also take the questions. Of course, if you'd also like to unmute yourself and speak, please use the raise hand feature. We would like to take the questions now. Thank you very much. We can see the thumbs up, the emojis, all cheering you on for this wonderful presentation. Thank you, ma'am. So we have our question time now. If we have questions, please feel free to let us know. Do we have any questions? We can make use of the chat box. We can also unmute ourselves. And while we're typing in, it will be good to put in on the chat box our takeaway from today's session. Yes, we also have someone saying, I've learned a lot today. Chukwebuka Eze, thank you so much for that.
There's a question there. There's a hand up.
All right, Mr. Ifanyibe, your hand is up.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Ezekobe. Beautiful, very beautiful presentation. And so my question is this. I know this is about parenting, but I also understand that modeling is a very beautiful way to parent. But in a situation or in our world today where the ideas of the traditional values are in constant change, and given that children spend more time in school, I mean, grade kids, they spend more time in school with their teachers, with their parents, spending less and less time with them. Now, what do you say to the parents who have to deal with the issue of their children being more influenced by the modeling of their teacher than the parent? especially where the values of the teacher are some kind of a different from the family value. Okay.
All right. Very good question, Mr. Ibe. And I'll start with a very practical example. In the space that you are privileged to be able to choose the school that your children go to. So hopefully your decision for a school is based off of a school that has values that are important to your family. Hopefully when you're getting a house, you look for a house that is close enough to a school just because you want to cut down on traffic time, but you do have some influence over the schools that you teach. The next best thing is involvement. No matter how busy you are, I'll tell you practically, I used to teach, very like hands-on, I was colleagues with Miss Melvina. So I can tell you for free that the best students were the ones who got there. It had nothing to do with the grades. It was the parents who were involved. It was the parents who made their job that much easier because they gave you tools. I'll be honest with you. Where I live, before beginning of the school year, I'm there for everything. I don't miss anything. And they're always like, oh, wow, I will use my vacation time if I have to. I will take my break at a different time if I have to be there, to show up. It's not always about the kids. It's about the teachers. Like you said, they do have influence over my kids. I know this. So I make sure that I know you as a person. I make sure that I'm telling you that, thank you for what you're doing for my child. Is there anything else that you need to know? I don't wait for the teacher to discover that this child is strong-willed or that child is this other thing. You start school and I'm telling you, oh, I've heard that you're my child teacher. I introduce myself. Please know that I'm accessible at any time of the day. You can just send me an email if you need to speak to me about something. But I wanted you to know that this child has this strength. If you had a challenge with this child, I would appreciate you saying it a certain way. Have I ever met a teacher who thought that was forward? Of course I have. But when they encountered the challenge and they were able to navigate it, and maybe that day my child was the only person they could get to behave because they knew what to do because of my insights, they were grateful. Guess what? After that, my child is going to a new class and they say, well, you probably see their mom, but you can just call her and ask her if you have a problem. Just like that, I have an entire school that is rooting for me and my family. I have an entire school saying, well, they're doing something right. I'm going to tell you. My child speaks to someone they don't think is good influence. I hear before they get home. I hear, just so you know, I saw this person speaking to this person. I'm not sure you would like that. That's all they need to say. I don't know the child. I don't pass any judgment on someone else's parenting, but I talk to my child about how their day was and who they hung out with and, what they liked about this conversation or this person. And before you know it, because we do have different values, I have teachers who ask them to do stuff so they don't have time to speak to that person when I'm not there. So that's something you can do. Engage the teachers. But why are you engaging? You're not there to give them directions. You're not there to tell them how to do their job. You are there to offer insights that make it easier to teach your own children. And guess what? It just becomes easy. They know what to do with your child. They are supportive. They keep an eye on your child because you've proven you're an ally. You've proven that you understand what they're trying to do and you're willing to work with them to get it done. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question on the chat box, and the person is asking, is this gentle parenting? This is from Ijoma Ohiri.
So what's the question? Oh,
I think she's asking in line with yes, is this different from gentle parenting?
I've heard a lot of, it's a social media terminology, gentle parenting. I do think that people misunderstand respect for children the way it has to be done now for gentle parenting. If you talk down at a child in 2026, the world says they're not loved. The world says they're not respected. I would say to you, you don't want to talk down on your child because you do want them confident. You do want them able to walk into spaces and affirm who they are respectfully, not about being in someone else's face, but about being confident in who they are. But that has nothing to do with disrespect. Because you are a parent, you do not need to use curse words when speaking to your child. You cannot use the same mouth that you use to bless to curse at the same time. You have to tell your child, I am very disappointed. Yes, speak a lot of English. I'm very disappointed in this behavior. I would expect that you would do things differently. Do you mind telling me why we're doing this? Because you know that's not acceptable in this home. Let them sit down and tell you, oh, but mommy, this is like, that's fine. But what you've given me is an excuse. I want to hear the reasoning that went behind this action. That's dialogue. I really want to hear this out because, quite frankly, I don't know why you would do this, but I'm listening. Please tell me. It's gentle, in my opinion. You're respecting, you're affirming even in a difficult situation. I respect you. I expect better. Please help me understand this. You have to model, it goes back to modeling the right behavior. You need to be the one proving that gentle parenting has nothing to do with everything goes. Gentle parenting has nothing to do with once you need something, I'm going to jump and start running to get it done. If a child comes to you, but that's the thing, you have to start early. You have to be the one to say, you know what? I think that we have to decide how many birthdays we want. Who's your closest friend? How many gifts are we getting? What is the price range? Are we going beyond this? Give guidelines that make it easy for them to understand the decisions that you've made. I hope this helps. I think kindness and respect when you're dealing with your children is different from gentle parenting as projected on social media. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll quickly read the 3 questions we have. And right after that, Mr. Francis Nwadike has a question. I think he may be the last for today for want of time. So I'll take the first question from Mr. Jude Udachara. How do you model in family where the children think you are an old school and do not really understand their Gen Z world and mindset, especially when the kids have to teach you about use of computer and handset and telephone icons and functions? This is question 1. And then the second one, how could parents correct children and teach them to always do good and do house chores and schoolwork without having to shout physical punishment when they are insisting on not obeying? And then the third one, how can parents who have not started early enough do so? Can they begin at any time, even with adolescents and young adults?
Okay, I'll have to start with the last question because I did say during the presentation, the best time to start is when they're young because that's how they are formed, that's what their mind knows. The next best time is now. And in asking the other questions, hopefully I'll give you some tips. Now, parents, I need you to take very seriously what I mean by modeling example. Let me ask you the same question, sir. How do you model something you don't know? There's no reason why your Gen Z child should think you are old school. Honest opinion. It's okay for them to still have to teach you things. That's fantastic. What you do about it and how you respond to it is different. Imagine that in 2026, the mom goes to sew clothes and you have shoulder pads that are this high. That has nothing to do with being stylish in the 60s, right? You would not do that. You would go to the tailor and you would sew clothes that are trendy, that are fashionable and are relevant. It's the same thing with parenting. You have to improve. Why are you changing your phone? Because you know that right now it's just become more difficult to work with a phone that's not a smartphone, that you can't send messages, very quickly to people. You say, oh, I'm not on WhatsApp. Well, we need you on WhatsApp because we do need to send instant messaging. Even offices now have that as an official communication channel. So there's a thin line between knowing all of the things that they know and staying stuck in a different generation. You want your children to come to you happily because their friends come to your school and say, oh, your mom always looks really good. Where does she buy her stuff from? And then all of a sudden you have a teenager who thinks they know everything about fashion, asking you, what do you think about this? Because their friends are the one telling them, oh, your mom really knows how to combine colors. She always looks good. I always want to see what she has on this and that and this other thing. You have to be trendy. You can't be parenting appropriately if you're stuck in a parenting presentation. I didn't say style, presentation that is years old. There's no reason, and that's the good example I'll use. You do not wear the clothes you wore in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, even in the 90s and the early 2000s. You've changed them. You've changed your phone. So even though they are coming to you for tips or they're showing you things, you still have to stay relevant in the ways that you can. You should be the one, talk to them and say clock it and let them turn and be like, do you know what that means? Like, of course I know what clock it means. That's you being relevant. I will be honest, and there's someone on this call who I know personally who, if I thought, and this person is a much older person, this person is a grandpa to me, but I am telling you that if I thought too far of something I wanted to know about IT, he would come to mind. I would think if I ask him, I bet you he knows it. He's a grandpa. He has decided to use his time to say, I want to understand technology. I want to know how to use things. You are very intelligent. You are a professional. You retired at the top of your career. Google has nothing on you. You can watch the videos and figure those things out in minutes. So please use that. And I think there was a second question that was talking about resistance. Can I remind you that your children are your dependents? I'm going to share an example that someone, and I don't know if she's on this call, she might be. Imagine a scenario where your child refuses to do something that you've agreed on. It's fine. You, again, remember, you don't need to model the negative behaviors that they're displaying. A child says, no, I don't want to go to lesson. You can't tell me what to do. It's fine. Of course, it's fine. You take your keys, you keep it, the driver gets to go home. 5 minutes that they even tell you, I want to go and see my friend. You're like, okay, if that's what you feel like doing with your time right now, I guess I can respect that. Full stop, done. Conversation is over. You start washing your plates because you won't wash the one they use. Now, in fact, maybe you now have one higher up because these are my plates, these are your plates. But guess what? 5 minutes later, they need to go to that friend's house and they come to you because they don't drive. They don't have the car. They can't pay for gas. They can't pay for food. It's expensive. And they say, I'm ready to go. And I'm like, that's fine. I did agree with you. You could go, but I'm not able to support that. I hope you understand. The money that I have now is just to get me to go. And, the only other place we're going is to the mall this afternoon to buy provisions for the house. I'm sorry, I can't help. Full stop. They are very intelligent. This younger generation, they figure stuff out. Even if it's just to get you to take him, they have to conform. The problem is you're arguing with them when they are the dependent. You're arguing with them when you're fueling their lifestyle. Why are you doing that? It's fine. They can do what they want, but then actions have consequences. And you need to be explained that you say, oh, I need to remind you. Remember that we said if we were able to finish the chores, maybe anyone that wanted to go someplace, I would be willing to drop them off, but I've just done the chores. I'm so tired. I need to rest. I am so sorry. You go into your room. Are they going to be upset? Yes. But did you explain why you had to? Because they were the ones that switched on you. It wasn't you that changed the rules. They decided that there was no need to do the chores. So you need to understand that you are not following through with explanations. You are not laying down the consequences of actions based on what you've discussed. I will help get a present for your friend. However, you need to earn it. If you do things, washing plates, that's your responsibility. But then if you wash it and tidy it and just do something fancy that I like, you get 1,000 naira worth of points. You can cash it in anytime that you like. Agreement. You decide not to wash plate. It's fine. It's my home. I will wash it. You're going to live in your house at some point. But you can't come to me. You don't get to change and come to me. That's all I'm saying. They need to know this. I hope this helps. I think I've answered all the questions.
Yes, thank you very much. We have Mr. Francis Mwadike. He needs to ask a question and then we'll take the last one on the chat box. Mr. Francis, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. Such a brilliant presentation. My question is just very simple and straight to the point. But I want to paint a scenario before I ask the question. Now, the question is this: how do you enforce discipline on a child, especially when such discipline should be enforced at home? And I give you just a simple scenario to this. A boy brought money to school and I accosted him and collected the money. I felt that this boy stole the money. And then after some time, I told him, okay, get a written note from your dad or any of your parents to show that that money belonged to you and that money belonged to you. So the boy came back and the father wrote a written note. The written note was in a sheet of paper, as in a sheet of paper. I felt insulted by that, in a sheet of paper. So I had to call some other, I called the Dean of Studies, and the Dean of Studies was also disappointed. So that's why I'm asking this question. How do you, and this is a boy we are trying to help to see whether he can come up, in terms of academics and other character-wise. So that's why I asked the question, how do you enforce discipline on a child, especially when such discipline should be enforced at home? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Francis. Francis, fantastic question, and I'll try to tie that with Mr. Opala's question in the chat. I say before discipline, enforce connection. Everybody, yourself included, you were once a child. You were young. You didn't know that your teachers meant well. You didn't know that all the scolding, every single scolding was about you trying to be a better version of yourself. And you will eventually. But people, what is peer pressure? You see it all the time. It's people doing stuff that they know not to do because someone that they look up to, rightly or wrongly, is doing that thing. Have peer pressure influence over the kids that you work with. Let that child, first of all, be so sure. Remember, I talked about being loved. I talked about connections. What does that child like? I know you were disappointed, but starting with the disappointment, before that, let the child care enough. Let the child be sure that, this person that I look up to, this person that is rooting for me, is so disappointed in what I've done that I want to change it because I want to see them smile at me again. You have to start with connection because, like you've said, ideally, hopefully, these things should be done at home. Hopefully, the parents aren't aware that's why it happened. But now that you've caught it, you want to do something different about it. Hopefully, you can connect with the child first. And I say this because that's what a teacher can do. Parents have it tougher in that context. If you have a child who doesn't want to eat something and takes advantage of it, what I would say to that is keep bringing it up, keep mentioning. The child, tell them the story of how, I'm just saying, I think you should eat it sometimes because if you ever get stranded on an ocean, you just might not have anything else to eat. That's all. I've done my part. And, they say they want to travel somewhere. Just throw it in that, that's going across the ocean. Don't worry, their mind will do the work it needs to do. They're going to hear ocean and think that food, and just maybe they will try it because it's right there. You didn't force, but it's just there. So, Mr. Nwadike, what I would say is, hopefully, you try to connect with the child. Sit with this child and say, I'm very sorry, but I honestly do not feel that this money was given to you by your dad. In fact, this sheet of paper that you've brought to me, I strongly doubt that it's your dad. I'm going to have to confirm from him because if he wrote it, I want to make sure that he knows and he's able to follow through with you. Is it okay by you that I go ahead and speak to him? Or is there something else we can discuss and handle just within the school here before we have to speak to your dad? I'm sure that every Gen Z, Gen Alpha child, that's shock. I have one chance to be protected from mommy and daddy calling me and the whole family says I'm this person and telling my teacher, yes, I did something wrong. Okay, I was wondering, I thought so. Now that we know, what are we going to do? You can't do this again. Downplay it. You're the adult. But you saved that child from the future saying, you know what, I'll be smarter about it. I'll make sure they don't find out. I'll hide it and I won't bring it to school. Use remember I said something, use that mistake as a teaching moment. That's the only thing you can get out of it. It's already happened. He's already taking the money. You see that it's escalating. You de-escalate very quickly. So I just need to confirm with a lot of respect. You don't feel respected. You model that behavior. Hi, how are you? Thank you for coming to see you. Let him wonder, why are you treating me like I'm my dad? Well, I'm going to have to speak to you, but I just wanted to check with you because these are the things I have to check with him. Is there anything I should consider from you, or is it something we're handling in school? Please let me know. Let the child decide. Honestly, I really think that that child will take it for what it is. I'm sorry I did that. Okay, that's fine. So you're going to have to, miss sports today, but please, we don't want this happening. The next time, they're more likely to come to you and say, I've done something wrong.
All right, thank you.
Your fingers.
All right. Thank you very much. Dear parents, I really told you that our question time are more powerful moments to learn, and I bet you can see that. We have the last question from Mr. Ayo. How do you go about excellent parenting in a world that is presently being driven at supersonic speed by artificial intelligence? And maybe I would just add this one more question. How can you stop a teenage boy from sucking his finger? All right, thank you.
Miss Melvina, your line cut out. I heard the part of sucking the finger, but I didn't hear the first thing. Was there a question before that?
How can you stop a teenage boy from sucking his finger?
Okay, well, this is a tricky one because honestly, they have to own what it is. You have to, and I'm not joking, I know I've done this with my younger kids. So model the behavior. Do, if it's older, even better, do what they do. And I'm like, imagine that I show up at your school and I'm doing that. You need to own it, but I think you should speak to some of the experts on this subject. At that age, I just need to throw this in. It's not as voluntary as it is. It has become habitual. He just forgets. His mind doesn't think about it anymore. It just happens. At his age, as silly as it sounds, maybe put a plaster, a band-aid around it. It just means when your hand is going in, you're going to look. And hopefully that reminds you why it's there anyway. And it stops you for that moment. I don't think an older child would put their hand with the plaster in their mouth. And as they take it off, trust me, at that point, they're also embarrassed about that situation. Try the good old things. Just wrap something around. It means as your hand is going in, you see, why is this here? Oh, maybe after a week, you will just have more, that physical reminder will just be there and you'll stop it. Someone was saying something to me about Mr. Nwadike's question. What I would say is, even if it was the parent that did give the money, I don't think it changed what happened. Please remember that it's an opportunity to trust the child and explain to them why this isn't allowed in the school. Remember in the presentation, we talked about dialogue and reasons and connecting with the child. If the child respects you, if the child respects the values that they're getting from you, they hopefully want to do something that doesn't disrupt that pattern. They hopefully want to do something that doesn't make it difficult for you to have them in spaces with other kids. I hope I've answered your questions as well as you would like. That's it from me. Thank you. Back to you, Ms. Melvina.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Ezekobe, for the insightful sessions and responses. We can already see from the chat box that people are very happy. Participants are very happy with this session, and they have a lot to go home with. Most importantly, we have to start acting. We have to start modeling if we must get it right with them. So as we come to the end of today's session, I would like to thank our facilitator for generously sharing her knowledge, experience, and wisdom with us. Please do well to be generous with your applauses, emojis. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you also to every parent, to all the educators, caregivers, participants who made out time despite the Arsenal football match that we have this night to be here. Please, we would like you to take 3 minutes of your time to fill the questionnaire. Mr. Victor, please, could you drop it on the chat box? Please do well to fill it for us so that We can connect better with you. Maybe there are topics you want us to address and we haven't gotten there. We really need to feel your voice. And of course, a lot of people are asking on the chat box, can I get this, the slides? Can I get the video? Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel on Parents First to get all the juicy conversations we've been having. And please do well to join the WhatsApp platform. It has been sent on the chat box so that you can also get the slides and other information. As we leave this meeting, I invite you to remember one key thought. Children may follow our instructions for a season, but they are most deeply shaped by the values we consistently do. Think about that for a second. The goal is not merely to raise children who obey us today, but to raise adults who can lead themselves tomorrow. And I'm sure you agree with that. May we continue to nurture young people who are autonomous, responsible, compassionate, and firmly rooted in values that will serve them and the society well. We look forward to welcoming you again at the next edition of Parents First. Have a wonderful evening, stay safe, and continue the important work of shaping life. Good night, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Bye. Thank you so much. Please remember to fill the questionnaire. We'll be happy to have your responses. Thank you so much.